This from the Daily Mail. Republicans introduced legislation to stop IRS from auditing taxpayers who earn less than $400,000 a year using the $80 billion from Biden's Inflation Reduction Act. A group of Senate Republicans introduced a bill that would ensure that the Internal Revenue Service can't audit Americans making under $400,000 a year. The two-page bill puts into writing what IRS Commissioner Charles Rettig pledged to senators in August. Rettig said the $80 billion cash infusion to the IRS was absolutely not about increasing audit scrutiny on small businesses or middle-income Americans. The bill has teeth in contrast to unenforceable, non-binding statements of intention or unenforceable, vague Treasury Department edicts, Senate Finance Committee Republicans said. The effort was led by Senator Mike Crapo, the committee's ranking member, who had offered a similar amendment when the bill was going through the Senate, and of course it was shut down by the Democrats. So if they are so intent on that this isn't to target your average, everyday American and small business owners, then you think that they'd be okay with this passing. You think they'd be in support of it. You think they would have allowed that amendment to go through on the Inflation Reduction Act. However, they'll block it. A group of Senate Republicans introduced a bill this week that will ensure that the Internal Revenue Service can't audit Americans making under $400,000 a year using the boost of funds included in the Inflation Reduction Act. The two-page bill puts into writing what IRS Commissioner Charles Rettig pledged to senators in August when he said the decade-long $80 billion cash infusion to the IRS for 87,000 armed IRS agents, which is, for those of you that don't know, there's less than 20,000 Border Patrol agents, and 87,000 will double the size of the IRS, was absolutely not about increasing audit scrutiny on small business or middle-income Americans. It's not about that, but it will. The bill has teeth in contrast to unenforceable, non-binding statements, and we read all that. The effort was led by Senator Mike Crapo of Idaho, committee's ranking member, who had offered a similar amendment. As I said, they didn't allow that to pass. I remember watching it, not live, but shortly thereafter. It was they left the lights on and stayed up all night. And what did they do? They shut it down. Wanted to make sure that there was no misunderstanding that these funds are going to be used to audit people and get that money, because that's what it's supposed to do. They're spending $80 billion with the hopes of getting hundreds of millions of dollars out of companies and businesses and people that don't pay their taxes. So they're this is very clear that they're coming hard for your money. Democrats cannot achieve their desired tax revenue goals without targeting the middle class, small business, and taxpayers earning under $400,000 a year. Taxpayers who cannot afford teams of lawyers and legal fees, which is why they reject my original amendment. So if you get audited, all that other stuff, what are they thinking? Is it expensive? Is it time consuming? Do you have to hire people? Do you have to get an attorney? Do you have to get an accountant? What happens when you're audited? So if you're a big corporation that's already paying your taxes by having all these auditors and people that work for you directly do all your taxes and pay all your bills, all your tax bills, those people are used to dealing with this stuff and are going to do it probably as part of their job, and they will incur no other expenses. But if you are a small business owner or just a taxpayer, a low-income taxpayer, for example, you don't think you're going to be audited at a higher rate? And what happens when you are audited and they say, oh, we need your taxes from 5 years back? Have your tax accountant get in touch with us. Have your lawyer contact us. People at the lower end of the spectrum are not the ones with the attorneys. They're not the ones with the professional accountants doing their taxes for them. A lot of those, even if they're paying for taxes and stuff like that, it's a lot of extra expense and a lot of extra time to go back to your accountant that you paid to do your taxes and say, well, now I'm being audited, and you have to go over the last 5 years of stuff. Quite a difference there. The $400,000 salary cap was likely used because, as a candidate, Democratic President Joe Biden pledged to never raise taxes on Americans making less than $400,000. Not raising taxes, but certainly going to sit there and imply that all these people at the lower scale are skating on that money that they owe. Biden reiterated that pledge during the White House celebration of the Inflation Reduction Act's passage on Tuesday. Rah, rah, rah. Inflation's still at all-time high for the last 40 years. Well, what are we going to do? We're going to have a party and we're going to celebrate all this stuff that the Inflation Reduction Act, which is nothing but taxes, and it's going to be a payoff to big pharma. All the caps and stuff on what you're going to pay people that are in those programs are going to pay, capped off. The expense above that is just not forgiven. It's goes somewhere, someone pays it, taxpayers. There's a whole bunch of payoffs and stuff hidden in that. And the way it works is the same as Obamacare did, where all the prices for all the people in the middle go up. In the run-up to the Inflation Reduction Act becoming a law, Republicans drummed up a hysteria surrounding the IRS proposed influx of funds. Texas Republican Senator Ted Cruz tweeted calls to abolish the IRS. He claimed the Schumer mansion would fund 87,000 IRS agents. Is that not how many it's going to fund? That's what I was told. Republican Senator Chuck Grassley asked on Fox, are they going to have a strike force that goes in with AKs, already loaded, ready to shoot some small business person in Iowa? No, they'll come and they'll take stuff. They'll put holds on your property. They'll put holds on your paychecks. You can't dissolve it in bankruptcy no matter how poor you are or how much money you don't have. If you don't pay your IRS bill, it's going to follow you around for the rest of your life. It's not like there's anything serious about that, much less the fact that they would need firearms and everything else. If they tax you, you can't pay the bill, they quite simply just start taking your stuff. The government says, that's ours, we'll take it, we'll sell it. Your business will be closed. Any paychecks that you get going forward from there, no matter what happens with you in your life and your career, they're going to dock it until they get their money paid. If it takes you all the way up to past when you're dead, that's what happens. Have a will, have a tax bill, guess what? They're going to come after you. Pretty serious targeting of people, and 87,000 more people can do a lot more damage. There's not that many billionaires and stuff for them to go after that they need 87,000 new armed IRS agents. This whole new hiring of all these people is going to be put under a person that was a key figure in the Lois Lerner tax scandal where they were targeting conservatives. So, yeah, go figure that out. Criminal Investigation Division of the IRS, armed agents. I saw some of the stuff with the training. It looked ridiculous. It's just like you would think, like accountants with no experience for using a gun and handling a gun. Certainly not prior law enforcement or anything like that. They're looking for people that are tax accountants. The whole gun part of it and all the training that comes with that is all secondary, believe it. Reddick, who was appointed by Trump, sent a letter to employees informing them that the IRS would be undertaking a risk assessment for each of the IRS's 600 facilities, the first of its kind since the Oklahoma City federal building bombing in 1995. There's a lot of questions about why the IRS would want to get their hands on so many guns, why they'd want to start collecting a whole bunch of ammo up. If, they're a branch of the government that's for collecting taxes, and we already have all these armed law enforcement agencies. Are we going to start a whole completely new branch of the IRS now where it's like strike teams that go out that are armed and they're investigating and they got to have a gun with them? So it's not anymore a meeting with a tax accountant. It's going to be, they're going to come to your house with a gun, come into your house and start taking paperwork. They're going to be on scene there instead of you meeting them at another location or sending your documents in. They're going to come in there and be in your face like, hey, we got to be armed to protect ourselves because we're right there on the front lines. Just the absurdity of it, the lack of understanding on how, enforcement of this stuff should work. Just the appearance of making it so much more forceful and in your face, targeting and acting like businesses and stuff are just going out of their way to skate on their taxes, and this is going to somehow be a big windfall of money for the government that can print trillions, but then they're worried about, this hundreds of billions, I guess, that they think is outstanding out there. It blows my mind that they're going so hard on it. They're spending so much money and allocating so much armed resources to target it. Anyway, I thought I'd tell you a little bit about this. We'll see what happens with this bill. I don't think the Democrats want this to happen. Taxation is essentially, we know all this, it's theft because they're not spending our money wisely. They come and they take it. They demand it. They have control over it. The people don't say, oh, let's vote and raise our taxes. That doesn't happen. You put these elected officials in there. They decide where the money goes. They abuse it. They spend it on needless crap that nobody wants to have. All these policies and programs, when they're found not to work, 50 years later, they're still there. They're still costing money. They didn't work. They're proven not to work. But particularly Democrats say, let's change course and try something else. Of course not. Anyway, thanks for watching.